The eagle among the prophets. A man called Isaiah. So today we're going to look again at Isaiah. People have called him the Christmas prophet. He lived around 700 BC, and he had such a daring vision of a future king, albeit 700 years away. He said, "Keep your eyes on Galilee." In chapter 9 of Isaiah, verse 1, in the future, he will honour Galilee of the Gentiles by the way of the sea, along the Jordan. Now, Isaiah is the prophet of hope. However terrifying the darkness may be, whatever the trouble, however fearful the gloom, a new day is dawning. God is not beaten. Darkness is just the realm in which his light shines to full advantage. Chapter 9, verse 2, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. What is this great light? The light of the world is Jesus. As John said in his Gospel, chapter 12, verse 36, Jesus said, "Put your trust in the light while you have it, so that you may become sons of light." The history of the church is the history of people who once walked in darkness, but have been shined upon by a great light. A great light made Saul, the church wrecker, into Paul, the mighty missionary. Isaiah, the prophet, declares a child will be born who is both God and man. He speaks of a supernatural birth. Chapter 7, verse 14, the virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel. He will be called Wonderful Counselor. Literally, that is, as a counselor, he's a wonder. He'll be intimately acquainted with the counsels of God from all eternity. Isaiah says he will be called Mighty God. In the New Testament, in Colossians chapter 2 and verse 9, we read, "In Christ all the fullness of the deity lives in bodily form." Isaiah prophesies he will be called Prince of Peace. This is the one who spoke peace to the raging storm on blue Galilee. He spoke peace to the tormented mind of the wild man in the Gadara cemetery. He's the one who said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you." And in chapter 9 and verse 7, Isaiah declares, "Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end." How can this be? Well, the end of verse 7 tells us God's going to do it. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. Now, this glorious vision is further developed in Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 to 7. Remember, it's still 700 years away. Some more bold brush marks on the messianic portrait are given. Verse 2, "The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of power, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord." someone's coming. Centuries later, John chapter 1 verse 32, and John the Baptist gave this testimony, I saw the Spirit come down from heaven as a dove and remain on him. There is a certain abruptness with which the prophecies about the Messiah are introduced, as if to arrest attention. For instance, in the Authorized Version, Isaiah chapter 32, verses 1 to 2, Behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment. And a man shall be as an hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest. As rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. The hiding place and the rock do themselves receive the battering of wind and storm to save those who take shelter in them. In the same way, Christ bore the storm himself to keep it off us. There's a verse in an old hymn which says that the tempest's awful voice was heard, O Christ, it broke on thee. Thy open bosom was my ward, it braved the storm for me. Thy form was scarred, thy visage marred, now cloudless peace for me. And Isaiah 28 and verse 16, the sovereign Lord says, See, I lay a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation. The one who trusts will never be dismayed. Jesus is that precious stone. The dictionary defines precious as something that has great value. Peter, in his letter, calls Jesus the living stone. And Psalm 118, verse 22 says, The stone the builders rejected has become the capstone. Just imagine it. The rejected Jew, Jesus, is the headstone of the corner. He is the first and the last. 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 11, For no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Jesus Christ. Have you discovered this great rock, which is your safe hiding place? The psalmist had. In Psalm 61, verses 1 to 4, he says, Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the ends of the earth I call to you. I call as my heart grows faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the foe. I long to dwell in your tent forever, and take refuge in the shelter of your wings. 50 years ago, I'd listened to Radio Luxembourg, and on it there was a programme, Take Your Pick. The quiz inquisitor was Michael Miles, and you may remember the yes-no interlude. Well, Isaiah is, in his prophecies, sometimes a bit like Take Your Pick, because he gives two distinct pictures of the coming Messiah. One is an exciting vision. If you're longing for a Messiah, the restorer of Israel's glory, then this is Jerusalem calling. Here is the news, and it's good news. And the sort of scriptures that fill out this exciting vision are chapter 40, verse 10. See, the sovereign Lord comes with power, and his arm rules for him. 41, verse 14. Do not be afraid, O worm Jacob, O little Israel, for I myself will help you, declares the Lord, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. Or chapter 42, verse 13. The Lord will march out like a mighty man, like a warrior he will stir up his zeal. With a shout he will raise the battle cry and will triumph over his enemies. That's a most attractive picture. A sovereign Lord who'll tread down enemies, rule with power. Very appealing, especially if he's on my side. But Isaiah also gives another picture, to the carnal mind far less attractive. It's the picture of the suffering servant. In chapter 42, 1-4, here is my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen one, in whom I delight. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth justice. He will not falter or be discouraged till he establishes justice on the earth. And chapter 50, verses 5 and 6. The sovereign Lord has opened my ears, and I have not been rebellious. I have not drawn back. I offered my back to those who beat me, my cheeks to those who pulled out my beard. I did not hide my face from mocking and spitting. And 52, 13 and 14. See, my servant will act wisely. He will be raised and lifted up and highly exalted. Just as there were many who were appalled at him, his appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any man, and his form marred beyond human likeness. The contrast between sovereign Lord acting in power and the suffering servant puzzled the Old Testament saints. How does it all fit in? It seems contradictory. What a paradox! That's the mystery we'll seek to unravel next time.